Hello everybody, welcome to Oscar Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and drop a like on this video. I am trying to hit 80,000 subscribers on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be much appreciated. At this point, I think I'm like 1.3k or something like that away. I don't remember. I don't check that frequently, but subscribe and drop a like. Takes 1 second, makes a massive difference. You know the whole drill. Jesus, I can't talk. So this news came out yesterday, but I decided to do a video a day later just because I had released a hot takes video and it didn't feel like I should just overload on too much content. So today I am talking about Isaiah Thomas signing with the Los Angeles Lakers. So first of all, this is kind of a similar case to DeMarcus Cousins, where this is a player who has fallen on hard times and has consistently not been given the best opportunity, but at the same time it's kind of hard to give that player opportunity because of the circumstances around who they are. Like, teams are not really going to be patient with a 30-year-old figuring their shit out, but they are going to be patient with a 20-year-old because of the potential in the long term. Really, there is very little incentive for NBA teams to be like, okay, let's play Isaiah Thomas 20 minutes a night and hopefully he starts to turn his career around. It's a matter of not really having the proper opportunity to come back to being what they were. So it's nice to see Isaiah Thomas actually get a contract. He very briefly played with the Pelicans this year, did not play well, and then that 10-day contract was gone. So the reason that he ended up signing this contract, though, was because of how he played in the G League. He signed with the Denver Nuggets G League team. And he absolutely killed it in his debut game. He had 42 points and I think it was 7 or 8 assists. He did shoot not great from three, but he shot really well inside the perimeter, which is really more of a concern for him ever since he's dealt with his injury stuff. So that game was much more, that game was really what got him that contract. And I'll talk about the Lakers situation individually, but real quick, I do want to talk about that game itself because I actually went and watched a video that showed both the highlights and the lowlights. So when he had bad plays, those were also in there. What stands out to me the most was his decision making and his playmaking, especially early on. I feel like he got like 4 or 5 dimes in the first quarter, and a lot of them were like full court passes or like half court passes and like difficult angles, and they were creative passes too, and then also a few assists out of the pick and roll. Isaiah Thomas is not known as some phenomenal playmaker. By no means was he a bad playmaker, but it just wasn't like his strong suit. If you look back to his 2017 season, I believe he averaged like 6 assists per game, which for a starting point guard isn't a lot. So he's not the most high volume assist man, but in this game he had a lot of really good passes, a lot of good stuff to their center in the pick and roll. Full court pass to Lance Stevenson, full court pass to, I think is it Davon Reed who was playing? I know the guy's last name was Reed. I remember that name being like a forward at some point who didn't really end up sticking around. But either way, a lot of really good passes, so that's what stood out. And then he also had 42 points. And the thing about Isaiah Thomas the past couple of years has been his offense is not good enough to justify how bad his defense is. So really, when we're looking at if Isaiah Thomas can be in the NBA again, it comes down to if his offense can at least resemble not what it did in Boston, because I don't think that's reasonable, but at least what it did in Sacramento, when he averaged like 18 to 20 points per game off of the bench a couple of years. If he can go back to that form, then he's an NBA player again. I'm not expecting 29 points per game from Isaiah Thomas ever again, but if he can go back to being a really good scoring six-man who is good enough offensively to justify the poor defense, that's his way in. I think last couple of years, though, as I mentioned, it hasn't been good enough, and one of the main reasons has been his drive and pick and roll game just really hasn't been there. First of all, he just hasn't ran that many pick and rolls from what I've seen in his last 4 years now. Not on a consistent situation. Granted, he's barely even played, but the pick and roll stuff, which was his strong suit in Boston, as well as his drive game, You wouldn't think Isaiah Thomas, 5'7" to 5'9" on a good day, would get a lot of his offense off of the drive, but you look back to his Boston days, he had an incredibly high rim frequency, especially for somebody his size. He would just drive relentlessly, and because he was small, he would still get swatted very frequently if he didn't play his cards right, but he was also good at finding the right angles, getting around his defender because he was so small. And I saw in this G League game that he did that quite a few times. Quite a few nice drives, a few plays where he put his body into the bigger defender and he just kind of threw it over his head to go in. I think there was a Euro step or two there. Also worth mentioning, king of the fourth quarter, not Kenny, but Isaiah Thomas, who had that nickname. He had 16 points in the fourth quarter, so that's something too, in a close game. So he also, in the pick and roll, a couple of passes, as I mentioned earlier, a couple of pull-up mid-range shots that dropped. As I said before, he shot really well inside the three-point line. I believe he was like 4 for 12 or 4 for 15 from the three. It's what I saw on the box score. It was a little bit high of a volume of threes. But I don't expect his three ball to be a problem. I think Isaiah can be a good three-point shooter. He isn't the greatest shooter in the world, but he's good enough. And the thing with Isaiah, if his dribble drive game is there, if his play in the pick and roll is there, and if his playmaking is as good as it was in that game, I fully believe Isaiah Thomas could actually carve out a role in the NBA again. The Lakers, they signed him, I believe, with a hardship exception because they have a lot of players going down with the virus right now. I made a video yesterday about how the NBA might have to shut down, as well as my suggestions as how they could come back if they do so. And after I recorded that video, multiple players, including multiple Lakers players, ended up getting the virus as well. So that situation's gotten worse. But Isaiah Thomas has been signed to the Los Angeles Lakers, and with Russell Westbrook out, that could very well mean actual genuine NBA minutes. So, what do we expect him to do? Now, the G League is the G League, and while it is a better league than most leagues in general, it's not the NBA, so I'm not going to expect a direct translation to where he can drop 42 points on respectable efficiency and have a really, really good passing game. So, yeah, the hope would be that the pick and roll play, as I said, the drive game, as I said, would translate to some extent or another. In terms of how that works out with the Lakers, well, their offense and defense has been better as of late. And I think what this might actually prove is how valuable Russell Westbrook is, because Isaiah Thomas is kind of going to fill that role, and we're going to see the difference between those two, with everyone acting like Russell Westbrook is the problem with the Lakers, even though he's been really good after the rough start. But either way, Isaiah Thomas should have some opportunity to score. God knows Anthony Davis isn't going to do it, but that's an unnecessary dig. He'll score, but, you know, he'll miss all of his jump shots. Pick and roll play wise, Anthony Davis is about as good as he gets as a pick and roll partner, which makes it annoying that they don't run pick and roll as much as I think they should. But at the end of the day, that would be a good pick and roll partner for Isaiah Thomas. The spacing might not always be ideal for him to get to the rim. If they have two big men out there, there's not a chance in hell that Isaiah is getting to the rim. Because you think back to his Celtics days, even when he was out there with Al Horford can shoot threes, so he had a very good spaced lineups to allow him to be more of a slasher. So I don't know how much the Lakers situation will end up affecting Isaiah Thomas's ability to play the way that he needs to play in order to be productive. But I think there's an opportunity there, and I would not be surprised if he played really well. And then when Russell Westbrook comes back, hopefully you have some sort of scoring six-man. Granted, you already have Talen Horton-Tucker and Kendrick Nunn, so that situation might end up being weird. And he might end up going somewhere else just because of that fact. I don't know. They might trade Talen Horton-Tucker. Apparently, the Lakers allegedly offered Talen and then a contract filler and a second-round pick for Zach LaVine. And I think the contract was Kyle Kuzma last offseason, and the Bulls immediately said no. Which that's not the source on that offer was not like concrete, but if that's true, hilarious. But yeah, Isaiah Thomas played really well in the G League. The Lakers need what he can bring right now with Russell Westbrook out. Hopefully he doesn't get it himself. And I hope he does do well because the guy deserves it. And his situation with leaving Boston and then losing all of that money was just very, very unfortunate. So hopefully he can carve his way back in the NBA. I know a lot of people who are big Isaiah Thomas fans, so even from their end, I'm rooting for him, for them. So yeah, hopefully it ends up working out. I liked what I saw in the G League. I think he can do good stuff for the Lakers. And that's it. Goodbye.